Here's a Newcomb model EDT15 classroom record player from 1970. This is a solid state model, and yes, I cheated and opened it up and looked for some date codes. This is going to need a full restoration, even though it somewhat works as is. The first problem is the waterfall effect, which is likely due to noisy germanium transistors. The second problem is when I got this thing, it was making a clanking sound on 16 and 33 RPM. Well, upon close inspection, the 16 RPM portion of the motor capstan, which is obviously the top portion, was bent. And when I tried to straighten it, it broke off. So this record player will no longer play a 16 RPM record. Fortunately, I don't need that speed much, and when I do need it, I have other players that will handle it. But 33, 45, and 78 are still good. The only way to fix that is to find an old junk motor and pull the rotor out of an old motor and put it in this one. And then, of course, the drive mechanism could stand an overall cleaning and re-lubrication. I think we have a bad ground connection on this tone arm, judging by the popping I'm hearing. And these controls are staticky, and the needle's bad. And the holder is not right. When I flip it over to LP, you can see it doesn't flip all the way over like it should. Given that the holder is defective and the 89T cartridge is bad, and given that 89T cartridges are getting expensive and hard to find, probably just going to replace this with a standard fan steel P228 stereo cartridge wired for mono. But I'll show you how it operates in its current state. I'm surprised it plays that well, given the tip is almost completely gone off of the stylus. Okay, enough of that. Let's open it up and see if we can persuade this thing to work even better. And here's what I mean as far as the motor capstan. It's a stepped capstan, as you can see. This is 78, 45, 33, and this is where 16 used to be. As you can see, there's no longer a 16 there. But this is how you change the speed on one of these. And looking at the underside of the platter, I see an inspection sticker from July the 17th of 74, likely put on there by a repair agency. Here's the underside of the chassis showing the amplifier and the motor. I believe this thing uses TO3 cased output transistors. And there's the speaker that's mounted on a spring suspended board, which gives it a little more bass response and helps prevent feedback. And they're nice enough to give you a schematic diagram, so that's always good. But this is an earlier solid state unit. Actually, Newcomb, even though they made some solid state stuff in the mid to late 60s, they actually stuck with tubes at least through the mid 70s. You might recall that 72, 73 Newcomb tube radio that I made a video of a while back. And there are the two TO3 cased output transistors in push-pull, which that's highly unusual to see transistors that beefy in a little portable record player, but you know, these industrial grade models were cut above your average kiddie record player, so you know, this should be a pretty powerful little unit once I get it going. Okay, I've cleaned the volume and tone controls with a contact cleaner. Now we'll disassemble this drive mechanism, clean all the gunk out of it, and re-lubricate with technician approved non-vaginal lubrication. Okay, you can see we're all apart now and we have a good bit of cleaning to do. I've already cleaned and lubricated this little piece here, and you can see how freely things are moving now. And whenever I lubricate a piece like this, or whenever I lubricate all parts of these phono mechanisms, I like to use this stuff here, and then I'll usually apply a drop of this on top of this stuff. And that's just me. I don't know why I like to do that, but for some reason I like to do that. And one other thing to take note of, when you remove the idler wheel, you'll notice some washers above the wheel and below the wheel. You want to make sure not to lose any of those washers and keep track of how many washers go above and below the wheel. The purpose for those washers is to align the wheel so it will make proper contact with the appropriate step on the motor capstan. And if the wheel does not make proper contact, you might have problems adjusting the speed. So you want to pay close attention to that. You can see a portion here that I've already did a quick cleanup on. You can tell the difference there, but you want to get all the dirt and gunk out of this because it'll migrate and mix in with the lubrication, and that's how these things get gummed up. And now I have the motor apart. This is as good a time as any to re-lubricate it, clean it, and re-lubricate it with the zoom spout oil. Okay, we have our motor reinstalled, re-lubricated, and ready to go. And I also replaced the 3 rubber cone-shaped motor mounts. These are still in pretty good shape, but while I've got it apart, I might as well just go ahead and replace them. And you can obtain those from either Antique Electronics Supply or from thevoiceofmusic.com. And thevoiceofmusic.com has just about any other parts you might need to fix up one of these old phonographs. And just one thing to remember when you're reassembling the motor, as you're tightening down the screws, tap it on all sides as you tighten so that the bearings will align themselves. And she's running like a top. We'll just let that run a few minutes and let the oil distribute itself in the bearings, and then we'll continue. And to all you Crosley lovers, y'all knock yourselves out on your $100 Crosley Cruiser turntable. I choose to spend my time fixing up real record players. Okay, it's starting to take shape. Now all we have to do is remove this center spindle, clean out that portion, re-lubricate, reinstall the idler, clean the inside of the turntable rim, and it should mechanically be good to go. And the way you remove the spindle is pop this little clip off, and then the spindles will just pull out. And once again, take care not to lose any washers. Yeah, look at all that gunk that needs to come off. And don't forget, take a Q-tip dipped in rubbing alcohol or contact cleaner and clean this bearing out real good. See all the gunk coming off of it? And then we re-lubricate with this stuff, put the spindle back in, and it turns freely and smoothly. Exactly what we want it to do. And there we are. All we have to do now is clean the junk out of the inside rim of the turntable, and then we'll give it a test run. Okay, I borrowed another cartridge out of another player. Let's see what it sounds like now. Not bad. Okay, now we'll move on to our amplifier and other issues, and then this thing should be good to go. We got to get that hiss gone if we can. Okay, now we're going to try to locate the noise in this amplifier, and the best way to do that is with our trusty old oscilloscope and a schematic diagram. We'll just trace each stage out and see where the noise is. Okay, I'm now going to check at the base of the driver transistor. This is a 4 transistor amp. We have our pre-driver stage, if you will. And then we have our driver, and then that feeds this interstage transformer, which feeds the output stage. So now I'll be checking at the base of the driver transistor. Okay, we'll keep an eye on our oscilloscope. There's the base, nothing. Now let's move over to the collector and see what we have. Look at all that noise. So that tells us that the problem is most likely either a noisy transistor itself or possibly this 330 k ohm resistor. I'll go ahead and replace the resistor first, since that'll be the easiest to do. And then if that doesn't solve the problem, then we'll replace the transistor. There's our resistor replaced. I just cut the old one off and soldered the new one on top of the circuit board. Getting these amplifiers out is a real pain in the butt. So anyway, let's see if the noise went away, or am I going to have to replace this transistor? Well, unfortunately, it looks like the noise is still there, so we most likely have a noisy transistor here. Okay, we have the transistor replaced. I just found a transistor from my junk pile. And now look there, no noise. Now let's just hope the amplifier is still working. So let's put it back together and see. Well, not only did I kill the noise, I killed the amplifier. Okay, well apparently it didn't like the first transistor I installed. I installed an NTE194 or SK3275. Okay, I replaced the transistor, the resistor, and even the coupling capacitor, and that still didn't take care of our white noise problem. So that may be just an artifact of the design of this amplifier. It's really not noticeable with it playing a record, so I guess we'll just leave it alone. And now we need to repair this ground wire. This connects from the tone arm to the actual chassis itself, and that's why it was making the little staticky popping sounds when I was moving the tone arm. Okay, I've determined there's nothing I'm going to be able to do about the noise problem, but you can't hear it with a record playing anyway. I've upgraded the old 89T cartridge to this fan steel P228 cartridge, and I've wired the left and right channels for mono. Unfortunately, this cartridge is not as hot as the original. The original puts out 1.3 volts. This one only puts out a half a volt. So the gain was not as good. However, I jumped out this 680 k ohm resistor in the input circuit, and that gave us a little more gain. But yeah, that's got plenty enough volume now. I also had to adjust this counterbalance spring for the new cartridge to get it down to a lower tracking level. With this cartridge we were tracking at about 14 grams, and that was really wrecking styrene 45, so I got it down a lot lower than that. You don't have to love me when I want it. And here we are with a 45 RPM record. 'Cause somebody else will. And here's a 78.
Forgive my lips if now and then they speak your name.
Okay, I still need to replace the rubber mounting grommet for the tone arm. It's kind of deteriorated and loose, and I need to neaten up these tone arm wires a little bit, but other than that, we're through. Okay, there you go, the 1970 Newcomb record player. Thanks for watching, and more to come later.